Don't get into that car. The little girl's fingers locked around Ethan Whitmore's wrist so tightly that the billionaire nearly dropped his keys onto the wet stone driveway. Rainwater slid from the black SUV in silver lines beneath the estate lights. Somewhere behind them, a woman gasped softly. The child lifted an old cracked phone with a trembling hand. "If you drive tonight," she whispered, "they'll say it was an accident." 3 hours earlier, Whitmore Estate had smelled like expensive champagne, garden roses, and rain drifting in from the hills above Lake Arden. The engagement party had ended 20 minutes ago, but traces of it still clung to the mansion. Crystal glasses sat abandoned beside half-melted candles. A violin recording played softly through hidden speakers in the ballroom. Staff members in black uniforms moved quietly through the enormous kitchen carrying silver trays toward the service corridor. Ethan Whitmore loosened his tie as he crossed the upstairs study. At 48, he had built Whitmore Automotive into one of the largest electric vehicle companies in the country. But tonight his shoulders looked heavier than the custom tuxedo hanging against them. On the desk beside him sat a stack of contracts waiting for signatures after the wedding announcement. One paper rested slightly apart from the others. A revised inheritance addendum. Vanessa had insisted it be finalized before the end of the month. Ethan stared at the signature line for a second too long before looking away. Downstairs, laughter echoed faintly from the last guests leaving through the marble foyer. Ethan slipped his car keys into his palm and headed toward the front entrance. As he passed the west hallway, something small caught his attention. A service door near the kitchen swung shut too quickly. He paused. For a brief second, he thought he saw a child standing near the laundry corridor. Small, thin, braids. Then the figure disappeared. Ethan frowned slightly but kept walking. He was used to employees bringing family members during large events. The estate was crowded tonight. Outside, cold air wrapped around the driveway. The black Cadillac Escalade waited beneath the porte-cochere with its headlights glowing against the wet pavement. Caleb Royce, Ethan's longtime driver, stood beside the open rear passenger door in a dark overcoat and leather gloves. Near the fountain steps, Vanessa Hale laughed softly into her phone before slipping it into her clutch the moment she saw Ethan approaching. "Finally," she said with a practiced smile. "I thought your board members would never leave." Ethan gave a tired nod. Hill Road meeting got moved up. Vanessa's smile flickered almost invisibly. "Tonight. That's what surprised me too." Caleb looked down for a second. Just 1 second. But Ethan noticed it. A strange smell drifted through the rain then. Sharp. Chemical. Not gasoline exactly. Caleb stepped subtly between Ethan and the SUV. "Road's slick tonight, sir," he said. "We should take the lower route." Ethan glanced at him. Caleb never suggested routes. Before Ethan could answer, movement burst from the darkness near the hedges. A little black girl stumbled onto the driveway, breathing hard as if she had been running. Her oversized hoodie was soaked through. One sneaker lace dragged behind her across the wet stone. "Sir!" she cried. Security turned instantly. One guard grabbed for her arm, but she twisted free and ran straight toward Ethan. Vanessa's expression hardened. "Get her out of here." The girl ignored her completely. She stopped inches from Ethan and seized his wrist with both shaking hands. Ethan opened his mouth to pull away, but then he saw her face. Not fear. Not desperation. Urgency. The kind that made children forget they were supposed to be afraid of powerful people. Slowly, the girl raised an old phone with a shattered screen between them. A distorted audio file was already playing through the tiny speaker. Static crackled in the rain. Then a man's voice whispered through the noise. "Brake lines loose." Caleb went completely still. Rain ticked softly against the hood of the Escalade. Nobody moved for a full second after the voice crackled through the broken phone speaker. Caleb Royce stood beside the open rear door with one gloved hand still resting on the frame, but something had changed in his posture. His shoulders tightened too fast, too carefully. Ethan Whitmore noticed it immediately. The billionaire slowly turned his head toward his driver. "What was that?" he asked quietly. The little girl answered before Caleb could. "I told you," she whispered. Don't drive tonight. One of the security guards stepped forward again. Sir. She could have edited that. Vanessa let out a short breath of relief, almost grateful someone else had said it first. Exactly. Her voice sharpened slightly as she approached Ethan. A child records random garage noise and suddenly we're pretending this is real? But Ethan wasn't looking at Vanessa anymore. His eyes stayed on the phone in the little girl's hand. The cracked screen glowed weakly beneath the rain. The audio file timer showed 19 seconds. Not 20. 19. Cut off abruptly, like someone had stopped recording in the middle of a sentence. Ethan held out his hand. May I see it? The girl hesitated long enough for him to notice. Then she slowly handed over the phone. Her fingers were cold. Ethan turned the device over once in his palm. Cheap model. Years old. One corner held together with clear tape. There was dried soap residue near the charging port, the kind that collected on phones carried into laundry rooms and kitchens. On the lock screen sat 3 missed calls from someone labeled Mom. The timestamps were close together. 10:42 p.m., 10:44 p.m., 10:46 p.m. Ethan glanced toward the mansion. Most of the kitchen staff should have left by now. What's your name? He asked. Maya Brooks. And your mother works here? Maya nodded once. Laundry and dishes during parties. Vanessa folded her arms tightly. Ethan, this is ridiculous. Maybe, he said softly, but I'd still like to know why my driver's voice is on her phone. Caleb finally spoke. Sir, I was in the garage earlier. Staff walks through there all night. She could have recorded anything. His tone stayed calm, respectful. Too calm. Ethan had known Caleb for 9 years. He trusted men by patterns, not charm. Caleb normally met his eyes when speaking. Tonight he looked slightly past Ethan's shoulder. Teeny detail. Tiny crack. Rainwater slid down the driveway. Between them in thin black streams. Somewhere inside the mansion, a dishwasher hummed through the open service corridor. The sound felt strangely loud now. Maya reached into the pocket of her soaked hoodie and pulled out a crumpled white napkin. I found this too. Ethan took it carefully. Even wet from the rain, the chemical smell hit him immediately. Sharp. Metallic. He looked down. Dark fluid stained the fabric in uneven streaks. Brake fluid. Caleb shifted his weight almost invisibly. Vanessa saw it. Ethan saw her see it. You picked trash out of a garage? Vanessa asked coldly. Maya ignored her. He threw it away after he wiped his hands. Ethan looked up slowly. You saw that? No, Maya said. I smelled it. That answer landed harder than Ethan expected. Children lied loudly. Truth usually came quietly. A gust of cold wind swept rain beneath the stone archway. Vanessa stepped closer to Ethan, lowering her voice like someone trying to calm a difficult situation before it became embarrassing. Your board meeting is in less than 40 minutes, she murmured. If we keep standing here entertaining this, people will hear about it. Ethan didn't answer right away. His thumb brushed absent-mindedly across the side of Maya's phone. Then he stopped. There was fresh grease caught beneath the cracked plastic case. Black, thick, recent. Ethan's gaze lifted slowly toward the Escalade, toward the rear wheel, toward Caleb's gloves. Funny thing, Ethan said quietly, almost to himself. My car was serviced this morning. Caleb's jaw tightened, just slightly. Then Maya spoke again, softer this time. He wasn't alone in the garage. Who? Ethan asked, but he did not ask it loudly. That made Maya more afraid than if he had shouted. The quiet in his voice told her he had started placing pieces in order. Caleb's eyes flicked toward Vanessa, then away. It lasted less than a second, but Maya caught it because children like her learned early to read rooms before adults decided what kind of child they wanted them to be. Vanessa gave a small laugh, soft enough to sound harmless. Ethan, please. This is getting cruel. She's soaked, she's frightened, and someone has clearly put ideas in her head. Maya looked up at her. Nobody put anything in my head. Vanessa's smile stayed in place, but her eyes sharpened. Then tell us exactly who else was there. Maya swallowed. The rain had soaked through her hoodie and gathered cold at the back of her neck. She looked toward the garage, where the side door stood under a yellow security light. I didn't see her face at first, she said. I was behind the laundry bins. Caleb scoffed. So you were hiding. I was waiting for my mom, Maya said. Mrs. Landry said staff kids couldn't sit in the kitchen. Ethan's jaw moved slightly, but he said nothing. He knew Mrs. Landry, the estate manager, and he knew the rules she liked to enforce when owners weren't looking. Maya held the old phone against her chest. The lady had a silver purse. It clicked when she opened it. Vanessa's hand tightened around her clutch. Again, almost nothing, but Ethan saw it. A lot of women had silver purses tonight, Vanessa said. It was an engagement party. This one had red inside, Maya whispered. Vanessa stopped smiling. The driveway seemed to shrink around them. From inside the house, a late-night television played faintly in the security office. Some sports anchor talking about rain delays 2 states away. The ordinary sound made the silence outside feel even worse. Ethan turned his head slightly toward his head of security. Pull the garage footage. Vanessa spoke too fast. Now? Ethan did not look at her. Now. The guard touched his earpiece and walked toward the side entrance. Caleb shifted again. Ethan watched his shoes this time. Not his face. His shoes. There was a wet line of dark fluid near the edge of one polished heel. Maya, Ethan said. What time were you behind the laundry bins? She answered without thinking. 10:28. Caleb exhaled with a little smile. That's very exact. Maya reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a folded strip of paper, softened by rain. The washing machine broke. My mom wrote the time on the service ticket because Mrs. Landry said they'd blame her if the load was late. Ethan took the paper. The writing was hurried but clear. Washer 3 stopped. 10:28 p.m. Tanya Brooks. He looked from the ticket to the garage camera above the service door. A minute later, the guard returned with a tablet in his hand and a careful expression on his face. Sir, he said, camera 4 has footage until 10:27. Ethan's eyes lifted. And after that? The guard hesitated. It comes back at 10:39. Rain tapped once, twice, 3 times against the SUV roof. Maya looked at Caleb, then at Vanessa's silver clutch. That's when he said the hill would do the rest. The security guard lowered the tablet slightly, as if reducing the size of the problem might reduce the problem itself. Rain drifted sideways beneath the stone archway now, cold enough that Maya's wet sleeves clung to her wrists. Nobody invited her inside. Ethan noticed that too. Vanessa stepped closer to him, careful and composed again. A 12-minute camera outage during a storm is not exactly criminal, she said. This estate is older than half the companies in your portfolio. Her tone stayed smooth, educated, reasonable. The kind of voice people trusted in boardrooms. And a frightened child repeating overheard fragments doesn't suddenly turn Caleb into a murderer. Caleb gave a tight nod beside the SUV. Sir, I've driven for you almost a decade. Ethan still said nothing. That silence unsettled Vanessa more than anger would have. The front doors opened behind them and Martin Cole stepped onto the driveway, umbrella in hand, his charcoal overcoat buttoned neatly against the rain. Ethan's private attorney. Martin took one quick look at the scene. The soaked child, the security tablet, the halted SUV. What happened? Vanessa answered before anyone else could. A misunderstanding. Maya watched Martin carefully. Expensive shoes, gold cuff links, calm eyes that slid over her the way wealthy adults often looked at children from service families. Politely, briefly, like furniture that had spoken unexpectedly. Martin crouched slightly to her height, but not enough to make it kind. Sweetheart, he said gently, do you know what happens when people make serious accusations without proof? Maya tightened her grip around the old phone. I didn't make it up. I'm sure you believe that. Martin smiled faintly. But memory can become confusing when adults are talking nearby. Ethan's eyes shifted toward him. Just slightly. Martin continued in the same calm voice. Children overhear things. They misunderstand words, especially late at night. Maya looked at the mansion windows glowing gold behind them. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, warmth everywhere except where she stood. I know what break line means, she said quietly. One of the guards exchanged an uncomfortable glance with another. Martin stood again. Even if someone joked about a car repair, that doesn't mean there was danger. It wasn't a joke, Maya replied. Vanessa folded her arms. Then why wait until now? Why not tell security immediately? Maya hesitated, just long enough for Vanessa to feel control returning. Because, Maya said softly, your driver saw me. The rain intensified for a moment, rattling against the SUV roof. Somewhere inside the mansion, silverware clinked faintly as kitchen staff cleaned up after the party. Ordinary sounds. Rich sounds. Sounds from a world where people like Maya were supposed to stay invisible. Martin extended a hand toward the phone. Let me preserve the device properly. Maya stepped back instantly. No, her voice was small but sharp enough to stop him. You'll erase it. One of the guards exhaled under his breath. Vanessa gave a disappointed shake of her head, like a teacher watching a difficult student refuse help. Ethan, she said quietly, this is becoming unfair to everyone. Ethan finally looked at Maya directly again. Really looked. The soaked sneakers with the sole peeling loose. The trembling fingers trying not to tremble. The service ticket still clutched in her pocket like proof she belonged somewhere tonight. Where's your mother now? He asked. Maya pointed toward the lower staff wing. Laundry room. Martin answered for her. Then let's bring her out here and clear this up. Maya's face changed instantly. Fear this time. Real fear. No, Ethan caught it immediately. Why not? Maya swallowed hard. Mrs. Landry already said if my mom caused problems tonight, she'd lose the job. Vanessa's eyes lowered for 1 second. Tiny movement. Tiny mistake. Ethan saw it. So did Maya. Then Martin's phone buzzed softly. He glanced down at the screen, and for the first time that night, his calm expression slipped. The notification reflected briefly in his glasses before the screen went dark again. Camera 4 manual override. Access key, V. Hail. The rain eased into a softer drizzle, but the cold stayed trapped beneath the stone archway like something waiting. Martin lowered his phone too quickly after the notification disappeared. Probably a system glitch, he said, almost casually. This estate's security software updates remotely. Ethan held out his hand. Let me see it. Martin hesitated. Tiny pause. Tiny enough most people would miss it. Ethan did not. The attorney handed over the phone. Ethan read the notification silently beneath the driveway lights. Camera 4 manual override. Access key, V. Hail. For a long moment he said nothing at all. Vanessa stepped closer immediately. My access code opens half the house, she said. That doesn't mean I touched a camera. Reasonable. Calm. Controlled. But Ethan noticed her breathing had changed. Faster now. Shallower. Maya suddenly reached for her old phone again. There's more. Caleb's face lost color for the first time that night. That proves nothing, he said quickly. Those aren't uncommon tools. You said you were already here by 8, Ethan replied softly. Caleb opened his mouth, then stopped. Vanessa stepped in smoothly. Anyone could write initials. Maya shook her head. Not anyone. She pointed toward the bottom corner of the receipt. A rewards phone number was partially printed beneath the store logo. Ethan stared at it. His own estate transportation account. The number connected directly to the Whitmore Fleet Service profile. Silence settled heavily between them. Somewhere inside the mansion, the enormous grandfather clock near the east staircase chimed once for the half hour. Ethan slowly reached for the plastic bag. This time Maya let him take it. The billionaire held the wet receipt beneath the driveway lights longer than necessary. Not reading now. Remembering. 9 years earlier, after Ethan's younger brother died in a crash on Hill Road during a rainstorm, Caleb had been the first person to arrive at the hospital. Loyal, reliable, quiet. Ethan had trusted him ever since. The memory drifted back differently now. Small details rearranging themselves. Caleb insisting the road barriers were weak. Caleb discouraging further investigation because accidents happen fast in bad weather. Ethan looked up slowly. Caleb could not quite meet his eyes anymore. Vanessa moved closer to Ethan again, lowering her voice intimately, carefully. "You're exhausted," she murmured. "This is exactly how paranoia starts. A broken camera, a scared child, random receipts." Ethan barely seemed to hear her. His thumb rubbed against the damp paper inside the plastic bag. Then his gaze shifted to Vanessa's silver clutch. Red lining inside. Exactly like Maya described. Vanessa noticed where he was looking and instinctively pulled the purse slightly behind her leg. Wrong move. Ethan saw that too. Maya spoke very softly then, almost swallowed by the rain. There was another voice in the garage. Ethan turned toward her. "You said you didn't see her face." "I didn't," Maya whispered. "But I knew she was wearing your fiancé's perfume." The rain finally drove everyone inside. Not dramatically. No shouting. No accusations echoing through the mansion halls. Just a quiet shift from cold stone driveway to warm marble floors, where expensive light made every wet footprint from Maya's shoes stand out too clearly. Ethan led the group through the side entrance instead of the grand foyer. That detail did not escape Vanessa. The billionaire always brought guests through the front. Staff and problems came through the side. Tonight, Ethan seemed unsure which one Maya was. The kitchen beyond the service corridor glowed with fluorescent light. Half-clean silver trays sat beside industrial sinks. Somewhere deeper in the laundry wing, machines rumbled steadily through the night. Maya spotted her mother immediately near the folding station. Tanya Brooks looked exhausted, her hair wrapped beneath a faded scarf, her wrists red from detergent water. Fear crossed her face the second she saw Maya standing beside Ethan Whitmore. "Maya," she whispered sharply. "What did you do?" Maya shook her head once. "I told the truth." Tanya looked even more frightened after hearing that. Ethan noticed. He noticed a lot now. Mrs. Landry appeared from the pantry carrying a clipboard against her chest. "Mr. Whitmore," she said carefully, "if there's an issue with the staff family, I can handle it privately." Ethan looked at her for a second longer than usual. "Can you?" Mrs. Landry straightened slightly. "Of course." Ethan's eyes drifted toward Tanya's hands. Cracked skin. Burn marks from steam trays. Someone who worked too hard to risk losing one paycheck. "Get Ms. Brooks some dry towels," he said quietly. Mrs. Landry blinked once, surprised he had used Tanya's name. "Certainly." Vanessa stepped beside Ethan as staff quietly disappeared from the kitchen. "You're rewarding this," she murmured. "That child accuses people and suddenly everyone stops working?" Ethan reached for a clean glass near the sink and filled it with water. "Did you manually override camera 4 tonight?" Vanessa folded her arms slowly. "I already answered that." "You avoided it." Her eyes narrowed just slightly. "I checked the garage feed earlier because your gift for the board chairman arrived late. That's all." Reasonable again. Smooth again. But Ethan was no longer listening to her words as much as the spaces around them. Martin approached quietly with a tablet in hand. "I reopened the access logs," he said low enough that only Ethan could hear. Camera 4 wasn't disabled from the security office. Ethan looked up. "Where then?" Martin hesitated. "Your private app." Vanessa went very still beside them. Across the kitchen, a small television mounted near the employee lockers played muted late-night news, while someone unloaded clean glasses into cabinets. Tiny ordinary sounds. Tiny normal moments. Maya sat on the edge of a metal prep table clutching her old phone in both hands, while Tanya dried rainwater from her braids with paper towels. Ethan walked toward them slowly. "Maya," he said, "why didn't you ask for money?" Tanya immediately looked embarrassed. "Sir, we didn't come here for anything." "I know," Ethan interrupted gently. Maya stared at the floor tiles before answering. "Because if somebody pays you to stay quiet," she whispered, "then they get to say you lied for money." Ethan felt something shift uncomfortably inside his chest. The kind of truth children sometimes carried because nobody had protected them from learning it too early. His phone vibrated softly in his pocket. One message.
Fleet maintenance archive restored.
Ethan opened it silently. Attached was an old service report from 6 years ago, after his brother Daniel's fatal crash on Hill Road. The final line had been digitally amended 3 days after the accident. Original brake assessment unavailable due to missing technician report. Ethan read the name assigned to transport oversight at the bottom of the archived file. Caleb Royce. Ethan slowly lowered the phone. Then he remembered something he had not thought about in years. Caleb had been the person who convinced him not to reopen the investigation. The kitchen had grown quieter after midnight. Most of the catering staff had gone home, leaving only the low hum of refrigeration units and the distant rhythm of industrial dryers from the laundry corridor. Rain slid slowly down the dark windows, overlooking the rear gardens. Ethan Whitmore stood near the stainless steel prep counter reading the old maintenance report again, while everyone else waited for him to speak. He folded the paper carefully instead. "Caleb," he said calmly, "would you get me a bottle of water from the SUV?" Caleb blinked once. "Sir." The case in the back seat. Sparkling. Nothing about the request sounded unusual. That was what made it dangerous. Caleb hesitated only half a second before nodding. "Of course." Ethan watched him leave through the service entrance. Then he turned toward Martin. "Reconnect camera 4 to the kitchen monitor." Martin studied him briefly, then understood. "You think he'll run?" Ethan's voice stayed level.
No.
"I think he'll check something first." Maya sat quietly beside her mother near the lockers, clutching the old phone against her stomach. Tanya kept glancing nervously toward the hallway, as though expecting someone important to walk in and end all of this with one sentence. Vanessa stood near the sink island with one arm wrapped across herself. Composed, elegant, but no longer relaxed. Ethan noticed she had stopped touching her silver clutch entirely, like it had become dangerous to hold. The kitchen monitor flickered above the inventory desk. Grainy black and white garage footage appeared. The Escalade sat alone beneath the driveway lights while rain drifted through the open archway. Caleb stepped into frame carrying an umbrella. He opened the rear passenger door. Then he stopped moving. Ethan narrowed his eyes slightly. Zoom. Martin enlarged the footage. Caleb leaned subtly toward the lower dashboard instead of reaching for the water case. His gloved hand disappeared beneath the steering column for 2 seconds. 3. Then he looked over his shoulder before standing upright again. Maya suddenly spoke. "That's what he did before." Everyone turned toward her. She pointed at the screen. "When I was behind the laundry bins. He bent down like that." Ethan said nothing, but Martin immediately saved the footage clip. A phone buzzed softly somewhere in the kitchen. Nobody moved at first. Then Vanessa reached for her purse too quickly. Tiny mistake. Ethan's eyes shifted to her hand. She stopped before touching the phone. "You should answer it," Ethan said mildly. "It might be important." "It's late," Vanessa replied. "Probably wedding planners." The phone buzzed again. Longer this time. Caleb re-entered through the service hallway carrying a bottle of sparkling water in one hand. He stopped the moment he saw the garage footage frozen on the monitor. Very small reaction, but visible. Ethan accepted the bottle without drinking it. "You know," he said quietly, "there's something I never understood about Daniel's accident." Caleb's throat moved once. "Sir." Ethan rolled the cold bottle slowly between his palms. "My brother hated Hill Road in the rain. Everyone close to him knew that." Silence spread through the kitchen. Even the dryers seemed louder now. Ethan continued in the same calm tone. "But according to the old report, you encouraged him to take it because traffic was lighter." Caleb's expression barely shifted. "I was trying to help him get home faster." "Maybe." Ethan looked toward Maya then. "What else did you hear in the garage?" Vanessa spoke sharply before Maya could answer. "Ethan, enough." Too sharp. Too fast. Maya looked at Vanessa instead of Ethan. The lady asked if the truck driver had been paid yet. Nobody breathed for a second. Caleb stared at the child now with something colder than irritation. Fear. Ethan noticed that too. He unscrewed the sparkling water bottle slowly but still did not drink from it. Then he slid it across the counter toward Martin instead. "Open it yourself," he said to Caleb. Caleb did not move. The tiny red recording light beside camera 4 blinked steadily above the kitchen door. And for the first time that night, Vanessa finally looked at Maya not like a nuisance from the staff wing, but like a threat. Caleb stared at the unopened bottle on the counter as though it had become something dangerous. The kitchen lights reflected sharply off the wet leather of his gloves. "Sir," he said carefully, "this is insane." Ethan leaned one hand against the prep counter. Calm, almost tired, but Maya noticed he had stopped blinking as often. "Then open it," Ethan said. No one moved. Rain whispered softly against the dark windows behind them. Somewhere deeper in the mansion, an ice machine dumped fresh cubes into a silver bin with a hollow crackling sound. Tiny ordinary noises inside a room where everything had stopped feeling ordinary. Vanessa finally stepped forward. "This has gone far enough." Her voice carried strain now beneath the polish. "A child overhears fragments in a garage, and suddenly we're treating loyal employees like criminals?" Maya looked at her quietly. "You told him not to drink anything after the crash." Vanessa froze for half a second. Ethan turned slowly toward Maya. "What?" Maya swallowed. "After the garage voices stopped, I heard the lady say if the car didn't work, the medicine would." Silence fell hard across the kitchen. Caleb's face changed first. Not panic. Worse, acceptance. Ethan looked down at the sparkling water bottle in front of him. Then at Caleb. "Open it," he repeated softly. Caleb did not move. Martin stepped forward instead and twisted the cap loose himself. A faint hiss escaped the bottle. Ethan took one careful step closer and smelled it. Something bitter sat beneath the mineral water scent. Very faint, but there. Ethan's expression did not change. That made everyone more afraid. "Get Dr. Feldman on the phone," he told Martin quietly. "Now." Vanessa's composure finally cracked around the edges. "Ethan, this is absurd." "Is it?" he asked. Martin already had his phone to his ear. Maya slowly climbed down from the prep table and walked toward Ethan with her old cracked phone still clutched tightly in her hand. "There's one more thing," she whispered. Vanessa's eyes snapped toward her instantly. "Maya," Tanya warned softly, terrified now, but Maya shook her head. "I saved it because they thought I stopped recording." Ethan crouched slightly so she could reach him. Maya opened the audio app and pressed a second file hidden beneath the first. The room filled with static.
Garage noise.
Then, car door shutting. Then clearer voices than before. Caleb, "The brake line won't fail until the curve." Vanessa, "Good. He always drives faster when he's angry." Ethan's face drained of color. The recording continued. Vanessa again, lower this time. "Once Whitmore shares transfer after the wedding, the board votes immediately. No delays like Daniel." Ethan stopped breathing for a second. Maya looked up at him and suddenly understood she had said something much bigger than she fully understood. Daniel, Ethan's younger brother. The Hill Road crash 6 years earlier. The room felt smaller now, colder. Caleb shut his eyes briefly. Vanessa stepped backward once. "That recording is edited," she said too quickly, too loudly. But nobody looked at her anymore. Ethan remained completely still beside the counter, one hand resting near the poisoned bottle. Maya watched him carefully because she had seen adults cry before, yell before, threaten before. But she had never seen someone go this silent. Martin slowly lowered the phone from his ear. "Dr. Feldman says he can test the water immediately." Ethan did not answer. His eyes stayed fixed somewhere beyond the kitchen walls. Somewhere years behind them on a rain-covered road where his brother had died believing it was an accident. Maya's small voice broke the silence. "I didn't know who Daniel was," she whispered. "I just knew they sounded happy when they talked about him." Ethan finally looked at Vanessa again.
No anger. No shouting.
Just recognition. The terrible kind. Like a man waking up beside ruins he helped build by trusting the wrong people too long. Vanessa opened her mouth carefully. "Ethan, Please. He reached out, took the old phone gently from Maya's hands, and placed it beside the unopened bottle on the stainless steel counter. Then, without raising his voice even once, he looked at Martin and said, "Call my attorney, and this time, call the police too." By sunrise, the rain had stopped over Whitmore Estate. The long black driveway still glistened beneath the pale gray morning light where police cruisers now sat near the lower gate. Nobody raised their voice when they led Caleb Royce away. That was the strange part. After 9 years inside Ethan Whitmore's world, the driver looked smaller without the keys in his hand. Vanessa left through the east entrance with her attorney beside her and 2 detectives walking. Half a step behind. She wore the same cream-colored engagement dress from the party, but now the silk looked wrinkled and tired beneath her coat. Cameras had already gathered outside the property walls by dawn. News spread fast when powerful families cracked open. Ethan watched from the study window upstairs as reporters crowded beyond the gates. The old phone rested on his desk beside Daniel's reopened accident file. Same Hill Road, same weather, same missing brake assessment, different year. He stared at the evidence for a long time before finally signing the order that removed Vanessa from all access to Whitmore Automotive accounts and froze the transfer vote she had pushed through the board. Martin Cole stood nearby holding additional documents. "The board wants a statement before market open," he said carefully. Ethan nodded once. "Then they'll get the truth." By noon, 3 executives connected to Daniel's original crash investigation had been suspended pending federal review. Caleb's financial records revealed quiet deposits routed through shell accounts tied to a transportation subcontractor. One of the names matched the trucking company discussed on Maya's recording. Ethan did not feel victorious reading any of it. Just older. In the lower staff wing, Tanya Brooks sat stiffly at a small kitchen table while an employment attorney explained new contracts in plain language instead of legal shortcuts. Full salary restoration, health insurance, paid leave, protection against retaliation. Tanya kept rereading the numbers like they belonged to someone else. "I don't understand," she admitted softly. "Why would your company do this now?" Ethan answered from the doorway himself. "Because my company should have done it years ago." Tanya lowered her eyes immediately, uncomfortable speaking directly to a billionaire in her work uniform. Ethan noticed that too. He was starting to notice everything now. Mrs. Landry no longer managed estate staffing by evening. Several employees quietly came forward after hearing what happened in the kitchen overnight. Missing overtime, threats over complaints, rules enforced differently depending on who cleaned the floors and who owned them. Ethan listened to every report personally. That surprised people more than the arrests had. Late that night, the mansion finally grew quiet again.
No reporters. No lawyers.
No detectives walking marble hallways. Just warm light from the kitchen and the distant hum of refrigerators. Maya sat at the prep counter swinging her feet gently while a bowl of tomato soup cooled between her hands. She wore dry clothes now. One of Ethan's assistants had brought her clean sneakers that actually fit. Tanya stood nearby speaking softly on the phone with her sister about a new apartment arranged through the company housing office. Safe neighborhood. 2 bedrooms. No leaking ceiling. Ethan entered the kitchen carrying a small cardboard box from the study upstairs. He set it carefully beside Maya. Inside sat her old cracked phone connected to a brand new charger. The screen glowed softly for the first time all day. Maya looked surprised. "You kept it." Ethan leaned one hand against the counter. "That phone saved my life." Maya studied him for a second with the quiet seriousness children sometimes carried after adults failed them too many times. "No," she said softly. "The truth did." Ethan could not speak for a moment after that. Outside the kitchen windows, dawn-colored light rested gently over the wet estate grounds, and for the first time in a very long while, the richest man in the room understood that the smallest voice had been the only honest one brave enough to speak before it was too late.